in economics and computer science. And so I've had some touch points with the data science program there at UC Berkeley. And I know some of my really good friends were part of the undergraduates heading up the data science major.
Well, and I think with skills like econ and computer science together, I think you should get an honorary data science degree. That would
If they had released the major probably a year or two earlier, I'd probably be a data science major. Yeah.
Well, you're in good company. I think all the world's data scientists don't have data science degrees, so
yeah.
you're fine.
The new phenomenon, yeah.
Hi, Rich. Nice to see you again.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for tweeting out your initial data visualization results. That's always great to see public opinion as the project is coming along.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're pretty excited. We have a software guy who's building a nice like Mapbox interface to some of the spatial layers that I'm outputting. So it's cool working with other people, and the challenge has been a great structure to motivate people to do something. Just knowing that it's getting exposure to the state, and for young researchers and scientists and software engineers like myself and the people I'm working with, it's a really great opportunity to do something for the public good, and also to develop some sort of line item on our resume.
Yeah, well, if it works with your schedule at UC Davis, there's the upcoming USC California Water Data Annual Summit, the third one at the end of August, and we'd love to have you present. I'll send you a note offline.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Please do that. I'll follow up with you on Slack if I don't hear anything.
Awesome. Hi, Ben. Nice to meet you virtually.
Hello there.
Thanks for
yeah, it was
joining.
just private chatting. Yeah, just say ditto.
And Christine, I think since we're using your Zoom channel, you should have the magic power to mute anybody if they get too out of line.
Okay, yeah. I actually have an array of controls, some of which aren't even very polite. When I click on each person, I can actually send them something that says go faster or go slower. I can't even really imagine doing that. But yes, I have a lot of controls here as the Zoom convener.
Excellent, excellent. I see some people popping on. Feel free to turn on your video if you're in a place that allows that. What has worked in the past, if we get a lot of folks, is to just introduce yourself via the chat window, especially if you're in a loud area. We've actually got a small crew right now. We could probably do some quick introductions. Alex, do you want to start it off?
Sure. So my name's Alex. I'm with Imagine H2O, and Imagine H2O is a nonprofit with a mission to empower people to develop and deploy innovation to solve water challenges globally. We believe that data is going to be one of the next great things to help deploy new technology innovation. So that's why we've partnered with the California Water Data Challenge and providing a $1,500 prize to the best team whose solution best speaks to innovation and potential impact on a community lacking access to clean water.
Awesome. Rich or Dan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I wasn't sure if the mic was working. My name is Dan Constable. I'm from the Delta Stewardship Council, an agency up in Sacramento, and we are interested in participating and looking at some cool solutions, how to provide data in a slick format, in a forward-facing format, but we're kind of experimenting and just doing this for fun and after hours. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Right on. Hi, everyone. My name's Rich, and I'm a PhD student, candidate here at UC Davis, finishing my third year. I'm in a hydrogeology degree program under Dr. Graham Fogg, and my research is mostly focused on regional approaches to modeling water quality and water quantity. So I'm a groundwater modeler, but I have to use scripting languages and all sorts of data to accomplish what I do on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, this project might even turn into a chapter of my dissertation. So
Great.
Mhm.
So I see Andrew and Phyllis, Ray, others, if you want to chime in to introduce yourself, or if you're in a noisy place, feel free to introduce yourself via the group chat window.
I'll go. I am Melissa Giannazio, and I am at NEON, the National Ecological Observatory Network, which is a large-scale, long-term research infrastructure. And we're interested in big data, kind of to look into lowering the barriers to integrate and use big environmental data by a broader user community. And that can be interests that kind of span science and economic development.
Great, welcome. Anyone else? Oh, I see Andrew is not in a position to speak, but he's going to type out an introduction. Great. Ben?
I'll go ahead and say hi. Bennie Galovski. I work with the National Data Service at NCSA here in Urbana, Illinois. And I've done a lot of work in civic tech, so doing interesting things with open data for trying to make people's lives better.
Great. Krishna, Phyllis, Anonymous 707 number, others?
Hi, this is Hen Chen Yale Haley. Yay. Hi, Meredith. Somehow my video doesn't work, so it's because I try to figure out. But anyway, glad to join you. And I think our group, the big data proposal is recommended for funding. Finally, it's kind of long delay. So it is through education using the data hub in LA City, even student communities engagement to introduce data hub and application to the communities. So this is our project. Thank you.
Great.
Excuse me, Meredith. My name is Carlo. I'm the anonymous 707. I'm with National University. And I was at the first meeting that you held at the Google Center there in San Francisco, so I'm keeping in touch with what's going on and seeing what I can do to engage my university with this.
Excellent, excellent. Could you repeat your university? Sorry, it cut out a little bit.
I'm sorry?
Could you repeat which university?
Oh, National University.
Oh, great.
Southern California.
Excellent. So you probably already know Christine from San Diego. Great to have you join us. And please do continue to, let's see, we've got Phyllis from Community Partners, which is a fiscal sponsor for nonprofits working on a collaboration with Cal State LA on data literacy. Excellent. Anyone else? Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining. It's exciting to connect with everyone for this fireside chat. Although I was thinking the last time we did a fireside chat, it was an evening in Seattle, and being noon, end of July, probably poolside is more appropriate, but thanks in any case for joining the chat over your lunch hour. The idea for this chat came about when we were brainstorming different ways to support the California Safe Drinking Water Data Challenge. And in reflecting on the many data science projects and initiatives that the West Big Data Innovation Hub has helped move forward, we found that one of the most meaningful outcomes over the years has really been the people connections, the networks across different disciplines, being able to spark collaborations and sharing insights and resources, tips that might not have otherwise surfaced. So I'm really excited to have both of our West Big Data Innovation Hub deputy directors here today, Christine, wave, and Sarah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to need to wave from time to time. I'm in a conference room that's a little too green. And so if you see the lights going off, it's not, there's like no fallout here in San Diego. It's just an oversensitive light sensor.
Awesome. We'll keep it active. And besides their role in shaping the hub as deputy directors, Christine and Sarah actually are also leading organizations doing great work to advance data science. They're each executive directors for those organizations. And so we'll hear a little bit more about those. And although both of those organizations aren't necessarily focused on water, there are many shared interests. And as you'll hear more today, a lot of community tools or resources that are broadly applicable. So we wanted to share those, have some dialogue, and hopefully help out with all of the different challenge projects going on. So we hope this will be useful, highlight some different career paths. As some of the participants already noted, data science is a quickly evolving landscape of careers possible. And so I think Christine and Sarah are fantastic to share their experience and have had an eye on how data science has been developing in Seattle and San Diego. So thanks so much for joining. To start, maybe Sarah and Christine, you could provide some background about your roles at UW and DSSG and the National Data Service.
All right, okay. Thank you, Meredith. And it's a pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to poolside chat with you today. So as Meredith mentioned, I'm the executive director of the University of Washington eScience Institute. Our institute is really devoted to fostering and accelerating data-intensive discovery across all fields on campus. And so we work in a variety of different spaces. What I'm more going to focus on, I think, today, but I'm happy to take questions and more broadly, is a program that we run called the Data Science for Social Good program. Some of you on the line may be familiar with that because this is not the only such program. The first of these types of programs came from the University of Chicago. And there's similar or related programs in Atlanta, and actually we did a pilot program, and they're now in their second year with the University of British Columbia. Has a slightly different flavor, but the basic idea is that we bring together student fellows from across the country along with our staff data scientists to work on project proposals that are submitted in the social good space. And we define that very broadly to take in projects that are using data-driven discovery to influence, hopefully for positive societal benefit. And so we run that program throughout the course of the summer. So it's a 10-week program. We're in week 7, I think, right now. We take proposals really from across the country, although a lot of our proposals do come from the local Seattle area. I don't know how much Meredith on that, or if I should let Christine at least introduce herself.
Sorry.
I mean, keep going. Yeah.
No, keep going. I think it's really relevant. A lot of people might assume.
I didn't want my introduction to take the next one. Yeah, so our program, we do a lot of our topics that we've taken, or projects that we've taken for the DSSG program have been in, we've done a lot in transportation, and I think that's largely because Seattle is in a particular crux point, which I think probably the Bay Area experienced or started experiencing some time ago, where we're really, traffic is escalating as places like Amazon and other tech companies have really grown in the area. But we have a project this summer that I think might be of particular interest, and I will hopefully try and draw some of the students in that are involved in that paid and be more involved in the water challenge as well, which is they're using satellite imagery post Hurricane Harvey in Houston to try and do automatic detection of flooded areas across the city. As you guys probably know, this is currently, when we have these types of damage events, this is done kind of by hand to try and deploy resources to damaged areas. And that's a very slow process, or in some cases, strictly people are driving around looking for damaged areas. And so the idea here is to use machine learning to automatically detect these flooded areas, both buildings, bridges, roads that aren't drivable, and so that this could be done, real time during an actual catastrophic flooding event. And so that's one of the projects that I see as being particularly tied into at least thinking about water, probably from a somewhat different bent than the rest of this project. I will also say that I'm very excited to be on a call where we get to talk about water, because I'm an oceanographer by training. So I know a lot about salt water, but it's fun to be a part of this challenge and participating with the West Hub in driving this forward. So thank you for the opportunity.
Awesome. Christine?
I'm Christine Kirkpatrick. I'm located at the San Diego Supercomputer Center, as you might guess, near San Diego, actually in La Jolla, at the University of California, San Diego campus. Here at SDSC, I head our IT division, and I am a research computing person, an infrastructure person who became enamored in all things data. About 6 years ago, I think it was the first time I heard someone use the term data science. And so I just started volunteering for everything that I could, and I found my way to projects that are at the intersection of my background in infrastructure and in enabling research, specifically for data science and for data people, if you will, so data-driven things. And I should say too, when people hear I'm at the San Diego Supercomputer Center, and I'm also affiliated with NCSA and University of Illinois, I'm not a supercomputing person per se. I think that they're extremely important resources, but that data science and data-driven challenges need all sorts of different resources. And so to that end, SDSC is part of a consortium called the U.S. National Data Service that formed this team that's primarily out of University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications, which is where Ben, who you heard introduce himself, is located, and he's part of that team there. So what we do is we've gathered together research computing centers, governmental agencies, libraries, publishers, and universities who all thought, we see what's going on in the EU, we see what's happening in Australia, and for whatever reason, funding, organizational constraints, silos, our government hasn't been able to fund these kind of overarching tools that today and tomorrow's researchers need. And so we've gathered together, we build not tools per se, we try to take all these other things that have already been funded, open source projects, best of breed tools, and try to put them together into something that's usable. Some of you might remember using email before it interoperated well with other things. You would get a PDF and you'd have to download it, open something that could read a PDF, and it's a small thing, but it took a little more time. And then as things got to be more interoperable, now of course you can, using any kind of email tool, just click on a PDF and it opens or it displays in the same window. And so we work on lots of problems like this, stitching together these tools so that they work seamlessly, so you don't have to be a computer scientist or a computer science hobbyist in order to do data-driven research. And Ben's going to talk a little bit more about that at the right time, but we've found that our niche is in our lab's Workbench, which is a platform that people use for hackathons. We've had some graduate courses taught to future curationists so that they can do bake-offs and get some hands-on experience. And then it's also used by research teams who are producing data so that they can give early access to the data to people that would consume it without all the normal hurdles of, helping people set up their environment, making sure they have the right version of Java. They just can go into a web browser, click around, and they're in there, and it already knows where the data is as well. So with that, I think I'll stop and hand it back to Meredith.
Great, and I just put the hyperlink to the lab's Workbench in the chat window. Those of the audience who were at the launch event last month, I guess it's exactly 1 month from today, 1 month before today, you'll probably remember that as one of the exciting commitments that was announced at the launch event. So I know there are several challenge participants on the line who've been exploring the different offers, whether it's the Workbench or other resources offered by Wolfram Analytics or Microsoft, et cetera, that they could use to tackle the safe drinking water issues as part of this summer-long effort. If maybe, Ben, you could provide an overview with Christine a little bit more on the accounts that people could use that you're sharing, or any other sort of go-to education and training resources that you think might be helpful to the participants, that would be awesome.
Sure. Let me.
You might be able to share your screen too, if that's helpful.
That's what I was just digging up. Where is my screen? So is that working? You can see it. Okay. So I think I may have I can't find my slides. The little control panel for Zoom is covering up all my tabs. But so Workbench came out of some initial explorations of ways that we can bring compute power to data as part of the a national data service. Generally you have data off in some far-flung file server, and you have to just download all of it to even start working with it. And so the Workbench is a kind of a general purpose. We like to think of it as your laptop in the cloud. You can launch applications in a cloud-based environment that already have maybe these big data resources already mounted on there. So we're working with a crop science initiative here at the University of Illinois that generates these enormous files of images of individual plants in a field trial, and they want people to be able to run Python notebooks and other analytics at the data, and it's far too big to bring down. So we offer them access to the Workbench with that mounted there. So in terms of this particular initiative, one of the things that we've had a lot of success in is just if there's like a hackathon or a workshop where typically people might be spending precious time during the workshop setting up software, we have here, so this is the catalog of applications that are currently configured in the Workbench, and you can get an account on here by just following the link that's in chat, and we'll approve you. And so there's a whole number of tools that might be complicated for you to install on your own, and this allows you to run it up in the cloud. And then if there are data resources that make sense, we can start loading them in to try to support individual initiatives. So we have complete IDEs like Cloud9 is a very powerful development environment. There's a bunch of data repositories for some classes that we've led in data management, Elasticsearch, Jupyter Notebook, Mongo. So you can go to the website that's in the link there, and if there's some complicated tools that you'd like to use for working with the data, then just sign up and give me a heads up, and I'll make sure that you get approved immediately. So that's Workbench in a nutshell.
Yeah, and maybe if I could add on, we have some strategic partnerships where we've drafted, oh, there we go again. Okay, so if you see me doing this a lot, it's not SOS, it's the light keeps going off. Some strategic partnerships, one of them is with the Earth Science Information Partners, ESIP. We just had, actually Ben was just at their meeting in balmy Tucson, I believe, last week. And then also with EarthCube, which is a National Science Foundation project. But both of those partnerships have added new packages to the Workbench that might be relevant and interesting for some of the work that we're talking about. Yeah, Geo Deep Dive is one there. Swab at the bottom is a visualization tool that was created for EarthCube, but is actually used by all different kinds of scientific domains.
Great. Christine, any other go-to sort of professional development resources that you think might be helpful to the challenge participants? I know we have a very diverse range. Some people are really new, some people are sort of mid-career, trying to shift trajectories, and so there's a wide range of participants, but any sort of go-to favorites?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and especially by people who are broadly interested in acquiring and honing data science skills. I mean, a really short answer is you can't go wrong learning Python, you know, but of course that will only get you so far, you know, using Python in a Jupyter notebook, all the things really that you get with software carpentry. So a couple avenues. If you're just trying to learn something at night by yourself, then, you know, hands-on is always the best, and I think try some things out. There's some Azure free notebooks at notebooks.azure.com. That gives you an environment without installing anything else. I mean, we had our last carpentry class with just, what are they called? Chromebooks, right? Just a browser. So literally you can start doing things with data just using a browser. You could probably do it from a library, but I'm not saying you should try that. So that's one place. If you have a little more time, there are some great courses on Coursera.org and edX.edu. They host MOOCs, which is kind of an old term, massively open online courses, but in other words, generally free courseware. They can throw up a lot of things that make you think you have to pay, but generally there's a free path. And then by paying, you get a certificate. I'm a little biased. We have intro to data science from the San Diego Computer Center, and it's been pretty well accepted. So that might be, or received, that might be one to start out with, at least the intro course. And there are tons of different tutorials, again, on edX and Coursera. Also, Udacity has some, they design them to be a little shorter. I think another place is just what you're doing now, being involved in some kind of group that's trying to work on something that's a data-driven problem or that can be enhanced through data. So many data scientists have learned this way. As we were discussing before the call started with the few that were on the call, most official data scientists don't have data science degrees because they are just emerging now. And so it is okay to learn ad hoc, but that can also be frustrating, especially for people who, you know, you want to figure out, you know, what's the proper sequence of things, what are the edges of this space, so that when you're having trouble, you know that it's a legitimate thing that needs to be troubleshot, not that everyone else knows and it's just you. If you're a reader, there are some good books to listen to, especially those of you who might have long commutes, which is how I got a lot of my my reading done. There's some, I'm trying to look real quick. I have one of those punchline diseases where I can never remember the name of the book or the actor in a movie, if that's the important thing to remember. But just to, you know, become a little more conversational, like any good area, it's got its own nomenclature. And so, you know, some of these data books demystify that a little bit. You know what I'll do is once I find these, I will paste them into the chat. And these are just the ones that I know about. We are at the hubs, we've seen a real need for getting started guides, and I haven't come across any that I thought, you know, were truly getting started guides. It was some of them seem like, well, if you have a PhD in computer science, here's 5 easy things to do. And so I think that through a combination of working groups and other related initiatives like the Research Data Alliance, I think we'll start to develop some of these ourselves if we can't find them. So I'll hand that back, and I'll paste these book recommendations into the chat.
Great, thanks for sharing that. And I know on last week's 3-hour, 3-segment tutorial with Project Jupyter and using those notebooks for water data specifically, it was great to see the R and Python tutorials, especially noting that the R one was designed for engagement with high school students, and that there's a lot of really interesting efforts to make this more broadly accessible. I know, Sarah, you guys are really passionate about this area up at UW, and I'm sure you have 10 million resources to share in terms of data science education and training. Do you have some sort of highlights or top ones that you might point this group to?
Well, we're big fans, as Christine noted, of the carpentries workshop, so software carpentry and data carpentry, and we actually run those. We have we're a partner institution both at eScience and also the West Hubs are a partner organization with the carpentries. And if you're not familiar with those programs, they're usually about a 2-day-long tutorial, sometimes broken into 4 half-days, depending on who's offering and their structure. We run these at least 4 times a year at our institute, and the West Hub sponsored workshops with the carpentries, both here and down in San Diego, where we brought people from across the region to get training, and actually to become, the workshop that was here at the University of Washington was to train instructors so that they could go back to their home institution and teach these workshops to their local communities. And these cross sectors in terms of the participants, including academics as well as those from foundations and governments. The really nice thing about the carpentries is, they really are at that basic or closer to the basic entry level, like Christine was mentioning. They're focused on either R, Python, and I think that we do rerun both of those simultaneously here, but it depends a little bit on the institution, how those are run. And the instructors are all volunteers, and so there's a really nice community of instructors and sort of technical expertise and networks among the different organizations that have partnered with software carpentry. So that's a good go-to place, and their website has a lot of the lessons available. So particularly if you have some nice activities to step through there. We've also, I can point to some other resources too, and drop some books in, as Christine mentioned. Through the eScience Institute, we run a variety of hack weeks, and these are somewhat disciplinary focused, but I think, I don't know if Meredith has the link there, but the one that's probably most relevant, and because a lot of the tutorials that are done as a component of these hack weeks, the hack weeks usually have a combination of tutorials, as well as opportunities to do project work and peer learning and teaching. We do it's called Geo Hack Week, but it's really geospatial Hack Week. And so it's a lot of folks from the environmental sciences fairly broadly. And so I imagine, I think the tutorial materials for that Hack Week might be of particular interest. And that's coming up again, let's see, next month. Oh no, September, so that's not quite next month, here at the University of Washington. So yeah, I can send a pointer to those resources. And then also I just wanted to highlight for those of you who are interested in coming to the West Hub All Hands meeting, this is going to take place September 20th in Boise, Idaho. The West Hub does an annual all hands meeting, and this is an opportunity from partners and people across sectors to join us to talk about our current activities, get involved with what we have going on, and plan for our future and figure out how they can become part of the West Hub.
Oh, we have a cliffhanger.
It was kind of like in Star Wars when Han Solo is like freeze-dried or whatever. It's like she's there.
I
are you
think
with
for dramatic effect, she was just going to point out that our Eventbrite is now open and that we're going to be featuring the water challenge as well as having a dedicated session on education and training. Are you back, Sarah?
I am. Sorry, I didn't know I left. For a while anyway.
We were saying how to get involved and then it froze very dramatically.
Well, hopefully it wasn't embarrassing like motion when I was frozen. Anyway, it sounds like you took over, so why don't you continue since I'm not quite sure where we're at now.
Oh, no, I just mentioned that there is going to be a spotlight on education and training at the All Hands meeting September 20th in Boise.
Oh, that's the water effect.
I guess another thing to point out about that is that we do have travel support. Sarah, did you want to mention?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't want to say something you'd already said. So yes, for those of you watching this after the fact, we do have opportunities to provide travel support to participants to join us at the All Hands meeting. So if you're interested in that opportunity, you can find the form on the West Hub site, and maybe Meredith's also gonna post it there. This is particularly targeted at early career folks, but if you have a genuine need and are interested in attending the meeting, please do fill out that form, because we're really trying to increase and broaden our reach across the region, and we'd like to have you be part of our community.
Awesome. Thanks. And as I put in the chat window, for those of you who are by phone as well, feel free to chime in if you have specific go-to resources that you think would be helpful to share in the community. I know folks have been doing that on Slack ever since we launched the challenge. And also, if you're looking to learn something, this is a great time to bring that up. We'll be opening up for audience questions as well, so think of some fun things. This is essentially our equivalent of AMA Ask Me Anything, live streamed and recorded for future viewing edification. And hello to some folks who have joined us since we started. I see Katie from the Northeast Hub. Also,
yeah, we had Andrew introduce himself in the chat if you scroll up a bit.
Yes, fantastic. Andrew is a data analyst at 427, a market intelligence firm that specializes in leveraging climate data and analytics to inform business and policy decisions. And he's also involved with our friends at Open Oakland, which is a Code for America brigade. And we have been organizing for the National Day of Civic Hacking some ways to focus on the California Water Data Challenge for that. So stay tuned on official announcements, but save the date for the National Day of Civic Hacking, August 11th as well. Hey, Andrew. And we've got Peter and other folks introducing themselves also. Great.
I also noticed Krishna, Judy, Ken, and then someone named Altair.
Is that David Altair? One of our data stewards.
I think David is at risk of always being called Altair for me, as is Peter, who will forever now be Paterma, because I have missed
You got to be careful choosing your usernames. Mine from undergrad has stuck for years. Peter's asking, why is our annual All Hands meeting, where there's going to be a feature of the California Water Data Challenge, why is it in Boise, Idaho? Well, that's because the West Big Data Innovation Hub spans 13 states, including Idaho. And if you recall from the launch event, June 26th, we had folks from New Mexico and Washington and other since safe drinking water is of importance to many other states as well. If I can't find data sets? That's a great question, and I think we said this in the FAQ that at least of the open data sets on the data.ca.gov, but folks are absolutely welcome and encouraged to be creative about bringing in new data sets and discussing with the community ways that we can improve the data that is collected. This is actually a good segue in terms of Sarah and Christine's experience in being scrappy and needing to seek out what's missing when you're working on a data science project. Do you have any advice or insights, anecdotes, war stories on that from either of your organizations or personal experience?
Go ahead, unless I have something to say, but go ahead, Sarah.
Oh no, why don't you go ahead since you started. Okay. Go ahead.
So what I hear over and over and what I've experienced is that so much of data is not ready to be analyzed. That I think a lot of people get into this space of doing things that are data-driven inquiry and think that it's just going to be exciting, that you're going to sit down and you're going to click some buttons like you can in Excel, like the sum button, and it's like, well, there's the answer. And the truth is, it's very tedious work, and it can be, and you need to do a lot of cleanup. I hear a lot of researchers talk about data gaps, and I think that that's one of the, if we're trying to be have the positive spin, I would say that that's one of the biggest opportunities in this the water challenge and studying water, all things water, is that you know, water doesn't know boundaries, right? Water flows where it needs to flow, but unfortunately our institutions have very hard boundaries that can make the study of this kind of data very difficult if you've got a literal gap between, you know what's happening up here and you know what's happening down here, or maybe only for a strange wedge of it. I don't know, Sarah, if you have anything more to add to that. I'm sure you've seen some of that as well.
Certainly, yeah. Well, building on what you said, you know, there's the classic notion that it takes 80, you know, data scientists spend 80% of their time cleaning the data. And I heard someone make a funny reference yesterday that, you know, 80% of the time cleaning the data and 20% time doing the analysis and complaining about all the time they spent cleaning the data. So yeah, and that's certainly what we experience, you know, especially in these project teams that we have over the summer, that, you know, much of that's a pretty accurate representation of how much time is spent cleaning. One thing I always like to emphasize with the students, you know, if they're getting kind of burnt out on that, is, you know, that this is what working with real world data is like. And that, you know, hopefully, you know, that they're going to be better and better tools for kind of getting, you know, cleaning data, and that hopefully
I don't think it's just Sarah. I was getting messages that my Wi-Fi was unstable also.
Oh, am I cutting out again?
You were, but you're back.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't know when I'm cutting out because my Wi-Fi is showing fine. For me to go off and come back on?
You're okay now.
Okay. What I was going to say is, you know, for the students involved in participating in this program, what we've noticed from the students who participate in our Data Science for Social Good program is that this is what you know, this is real world data. This is what it's like to actually, you know, get experience with, you know, in a classroom, you might get a perfectly cleaned, prepared data set, and you can learn some, you know, some useful skills with that. But what you're actually going to be doing in your job, whatever that might be, even as a researcher in a university, working with government data, you know, in the public sector, is that, you know, these types of skills are really important, and having with the stakeholders involved in that data, and understanding that these, oh, am I gone again?
No, we can hear you. You cut out, but we got the
yeah, that, you know, really engaging with the stakeholders and understanding the complexity, not just of the data, but of the problem you're tackling, is really critical. And so kind of moving on from that point about the time spent cleaning, I think it's also really valuable to recognize that many data science questions, particularly those in what we might think of as the social good space, or that are using public data with the idea of influencing the public good, that you really want to have the right people involved in that team that you're working on, or at least have the experts involved to consult. And so when we do data science related projects, we have built into our teams training on a very detailed stakeholder analysis, really understanding all the way down to some very distant end user what's going to happen with this product or app or whatever you're creating, and how that might be used both for good, and we have to be cognizant in this day and age of how this might be used that could potentially harm other people. And so I think that's, just responsible data use, and it's really important in any of these kinds of activities to think ethically about what you're doing, and to really train students in data science ethics. And a lot of that really comes down to understanding the stakeholders and those that are involved and influenced by the activities. One other note I'd say there is having folks, if you're working on this project, hopefully you are working on a project team, because as we know, data scientists it's a variety of different skills. And so if you don't have all those skills under your one noggin, it's nice to bring other people onto your team. And we've really found that having expertise in human-centered design is invaluable, both in kind of just interacting and understanding the project, the goals, and then how to frame whatever output you're creating so that it's actually going to be helpful to the end user, and going to be something that they'll actually, it will have a lifetime beyond whatever challenge or hackathon you're involved in.
Absolutely, +1 on all of that. And I'm glad that David Altair, whose mic I guess is not working, so I get to speak for David via the chat. He's here with us from the California Water Board. And for those who tuned in to the launch, you'll remember that we had Horacio, who was an impacted community stakeholder there at the event, and very much we saw themes throughout that day about the importance of connecting with the community, co-designing, getting feedback throughout the process, and not just designing something, throwing it over the fence and hoping that it'll stick. That generally does not work. Any other questions? Feel free to type into the chat window. I think we've managed to cover a few of them, pointing to, and all of the chat resources will be available with the recording after this, so don't worry too much about pulling them all out as we go. But feel free to also unmute yourself. I think Christine's got the overall mute control, but you can also unmute yourself and ask a question verbally.
And Meredith, did you see David's thing in the chat that he offered?
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. David offered to help with any questions on data, and then also on the Slack channel, David and others are answering questions about the data asynchronously, and then also offering to help with anybody interested in using R a bit, even though he may not be a self-proclaimed expert. That's great. Thank you so much, David.
Hi, I have a question. So a little more logistical, but I have a few people that I'm working with who are traveling at different points in the summer, and I've been the sort of point person with people that are administrating the challenge. And so one question I often get is, when is it due? And I can tell them sometime in October. I think it's because, it's good to have a flexible window and let people's projects flow in and sort of And so I don't know where exactly the team is at in terms of selecting a final deadline, but something like that is actually really helpful for teams in terms of just to plan vacations and when to work and when to not.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we are working every day on securing a location for the summit and awards ceremony in LA in October. Right now it's looking like October 18th through 20th is the window. It happens to line up really nicely with Pi Data in LA the following month. I think it starts on Sunday. And so we're looking at the Thursday or Friday before, but LA venues are tough. And so as soon as we have something confirmed, or if anybody has any leads and wants to offer connections there, please let us know. But the DiCaprio Foundation and all of the organizing team is working hard to try to find a inspirational place to have that awards ceremony. But the good news is you have the full month of August and September to work on those projects.
Okay, sounds good. So, but sometime in October, mid-October is the final submission date.
It'll be right before the award ceremony. Awesome. And we're going to get that out as soon as possible, knowing that people like to work backwards.
Totally. Thank you so much for understanding, and I'll be sure to relay that mid-October deadline. Thanks.
That was actually by popular demand. So you might have seen in the initial messaging that we said August. That was the state and the organizing team's original intention. And then there was real interest from people at universities who had classes starting end of August or September to extend it so that some of the classes could actually work and build up teams for folks who might have been away during the summer. So we're happy to be flexible and include more folks, and we will keep you updated on that October date as soon as we get one. And Rich, I know you had shared some resources and tutorials, that type of information previously on Slack and on Twitter. Did you want to point anybody around the Fireside or Poolside chat to any of your favorites?
I actually can't remember what I sent out just off the top of my head. So if you do, let me know. But I would say the way I've been thinking about this whole thing is that there's this old piece of advice that you can get a lot further in life if you're willing to take less credit for things. And I think with something like this, everyone's a winner already. No one's really it's a challenge, but it's not a competition. And so I've been really open to just whatever perspective someone has. For instance, there's a postdoc in our department who's like, oh, it'd be so cool to try using this random forest pipeline that I built. And I'm like, I don't know if this exactly will work with it, but I'm going to try it. What do we have to lose? So trying to accommodate and keep an open mind about who you can work with and what skills they bring to the table without having a set agenda of what needs to be happened, I think has been really helpful for me in terms of working with a bunch of different people. And being in a university is a really great setting for that too. So yeah, in terms of actual resources, I know that I might have shared something about Jupyter Lab that has recently come up. And I have a few posts on my blog too about configuring R within Jupyter Lab. If you do download Jupyter Lab, that I can post in the Slack channel.
Awesome. Great, thanks. So I know we have about 5 minutes left. If there are any final ask us anything questions, please chime in or type in the chat window. Katie is asking about the best way to learn about project teams. Just show up and bug people on Slack. Bugging people on Slack is always great. We actually have linked on the main Water Challenge website, a participant workspace, which includes a Google Doc where people are flagging if they're looking for additional team members, expertise in a specific area. So there's that space as well. So any final nuggets of wisdom from Sarah and Christine in terms of helping participants as they look to drive successful data science projects?
Well, I mean, there are some software tools that are helpful. I mean, I think the number one thing is you want to make sure that you're linked up with people who want to finish, right? People can be very excited to start, and then once the hard work sets in, it's easy to have attrition. So maybe you even, the team lead, if there is one, be realistic about attrition, or also when you have volunteers who are working adults who have, people that rely on them. Sometimes they can't always choose, and the thing that they're volunteering on has to drop. So, maybe staff up appropriately your project. Some groups like to use Trello.com for tasks. Basecamp is a little more involved, but that's another online resource for project management. I mean, you don't want to spend so much time on the software that you're a slave to it and you don't have time for your project, but those are good ways to set out and also show that people don't have common buy-in to what you think the task will be, but to document things and to send out assignments and gives you a quick way to view things. And then there's just Slack is a great way, keep it out of email, make the, interaction more immediate. There's nothing more frustrating than, really needing to talk to someone and having several issues to talk out. Nobody wants to get a long email. Nobody wants to write a long email. So I'm glad we have the Slack resource, and I hope teams make use of it.
Yeah, can I second what Christina said about Slack? I was going to mention that too, that our team created a separate Slack channel, and it's completely free, under 10,000 messages, and we won't hit that. And it's been really helpful to have a place where you can organize our communication.
If you want to get really geeky too, Slack and Trello have an integration, and so it posts to Slack when somebody checks off that they did something, so they don't even have to go back and say, hey guys, I did this. That can be, but again, it depends on, if this is something you're doing over a weekend, that would be overblown to use Trello. But, if you're finding that communication is what's hamstringing you most, then that's a place to look at. And I guess just as a larger thing, we talked about how data cleaning takes the most of the time in doing analysis. The socio-technical problems are probably always the largest, biggest hurdles on any project. It's not that new algorithms need to be developed, and it's finding data, but then it's also the people stuff. And so this can be a good way to hone those skills in a way that's maybe a little less stressful than working them out in a workspace, right? Because the team will go away, and you probably are people that have coalesced around something that you're passionate, like water, which we all need to survive. We are mostly water. And so hopefully that can keep things more positive. But if you run into team dynamics, it's not you, it's not the water challenge, it's just humans.
Well, and just building on that, I think, often when people look back on these kinds of experiences, and we see this with the fellows that participate in the Data Science for Social Good program, their favorite part of participating in the program, and that's a little different because they are all in the same room together, for better or for worse, is those people interactions. And so while those may feel like the hardest challenges in some ways, and you may feel like you're pushed in a direction that you wouldn't otherwise go, I would say take advantage of that opportunity, and if you can, create a multidisciplinary team where you are really challenged to work beyond your comfort zone and to hear other voices and other backgrounds, because that really, especially when you're working in the social good space, it really enriches the project outcome. It's those voices that help project.
Awesome. That's a great place to end this. We're right at the hour. I've had a great lunchtime experience thanks to these wonderfully insightful deputy directors. This is actually the first time we're doing a public fireside chat via Zoom teleconference. The previous ones, at least some of us have been in the same room, so it's great to have the California Water Data Challenge bring us together via video. And thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully this was a fun part of your day, and we look forward to continuing the conversation. Social media, Slack, website, we're always here. And thanks so much for joining. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for the poolside chat.